go.
All right, everybody. This is session 39 of the BraveMaker MasterMind. Thank you so much for being here. I know we've got somebody new joining today, so welcome, Jacob, for joining on with us. Glad that you're here. I'm Tony Gapastone, and we like to call it a creative support group. The BraveMaker Mastermind membership really is about helping us collaborate together, but also get some professional development so that we can be moving our careers and our creative goals forward. If you are joining us for the first time or the 39th time, as always, please use the chat to say hello, especially as we welcome Jacob in for the first time. And then we might have some other guests too who are here, but you can let people know who you are, what you do. That also help our special guest as he peruses the chat, know where you're coming from and what you're doing, and even where you are, because I know not everybody is in the Bay Area. So that's also cool too. But with that, let me bring up Robbie Ryde. And we met at Sundance at a party, and we kind of like instantly, it was like we were like leeching onto each other for like a good hour. It felt like at one point we're like, I think we should probably meet other people, but we probably could talk all night. He and his wife are from Australia, living in LA, doing very similar stuff to BraveMaker, which I think is what I really loved about you all. But yeah, Robbie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you do and who you are?
Yeah, definitely. So, hi guys, lovely to meet you all, and so nice to see everyone's faces. Really helps with that sort of two-way communication. So, appreciate that. Yeah, we met Tony at Sundance. My wife and I were out there. I was representing our school, which is the American Arts Film and Television Academy. What we do is kind of help. Originally, traditionally, is we were helping people transition to Los Angeles and find their feeding and find their footing in this crazy industry that we are all in. Typically, that started with a lot of Australians, and now we're working with a lot of interstate people because it's a big step. LA is a big and scary place, and there is sort of some unwritten rules and laws that kind of get thrown around consistently. So what we like to do is kind of really help our students transition over here, work out if it's right for them, help introduce them to good people, and really start to take the next steps in their career. It's kind of why After exists. The big thing sort of, and Tony and I were bonding over, was like creating your own content's a big part of what we help our students do. If you can see the bags under my eyes today, it's because we had our graduating class we had our screening yesterday at Los Feliz Cinema here in Los Angeles, in which we screened six of our student films that we created technically over the last 2 weeks. Five of those films, unfortunately, normally we like to space them out a little bit more, but in the last week a few of the films got pushed for various different reasons, and we ended up making 5 films in less than 7 days,
My gosh.
including post-production. So I edited 3 films in that time, as well as shot 3 of the films. Another buddy of mine also, yeah, it was in the same boat. But yeah, I was getting to bed around 4:30 every morning, back up at 9 to either be on set or back editing. So it's one of those things. It's a great opportunity, and it's the thing that we love about our school is kind of, myself, and we also bring in a lot of other professional cinematographers, editors. Not if y'all know a good editor, let me know, because we're always a little short on editors. But the big thing that we're trying to do is help our artists employ other artists, right? Everything that we do is about fundraising and actually raising capital and bringing money in. So it's not just a sort of a one-for-one job. We want to keep trying to stimulate the economy and getting people working, not just sort of doing favors for one another, because
Yeah, you can only do so
we
much free work, right?
yeah, yeah. And so look, these are the things that Tony and I were bonding over, was like the business of acting, and that's sort of what I'll get into in the back of this section today. But also creating your own content. That was the first class that I ever actually started teaching. First time I was out in Los Angeles taking some classes, I swear every agent, manager, casting director, I feel like they all went to the same party and got on the same boat. Because normally you hear so many different things, but it was like drilled into me, and they were like, if you really want to do your thing in this industry, you got to create your own content, create your own content, create your own content. And it was like ringing in my ears. And I was like, I feel like I should create my own content.
Nice
Um,
American English accent there, by
yeah,
the way.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sorry if that's offensive at all. But yeah, and it was just drilled into us. And, and they kept saying, oh, you can make your thing on your iPhones now and whatnot. And so I kind of went out to prove them both right and wrong at the same time, because just because the phones have the capability of doing it, right, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be something that's necessarily marketing you in the way that you want to sort of be perceived by the industry. So there's a balance of like cost, quality, and time that we want to sort of play with when it comes to like especially smartphone filmmaking. But that's kind of how I started teaching, and that was the first course that I started creating. That's when I started teaching at the school that I'm at now with my wife. That was sort of that class, and then sort of built my way up from there. And now I'm actually running the school itself as their CEO, which is weird because I still feel like sometimes I have to be like, "What is CEO? Like,
Yeah,
what does this mean?"
exactly.
like, But that's the one thing that I like to do with my business and my businesses. My wife and I both have production companies. Is although we're a very very small company, sometimes with our school we've got 5 to 10, sometimes more contractors working for us, as well as a few staff members on and off part-time. But the big thing that Jess and I always want to do is treat ourselves as though we are, 3, 4, $5 million company, and really start to educate ourselves on like the company structures and things like that, so that we can continue to scale up. And again, we'll cover some of that today. But yeah, it's kind of a brief background.
So, Robbie, the whole idea of marketing yourself, that's what we were talking about at Sundance a lot, is just how you generate your own income, and you have to look at your art, your filmmaking, your acting, however, your screen, your writing as a business. You're the CEO of your business, right? Some of us eventually get managers and agents, but still, like, there's still this whole idea that nobody else is going to be coming dropping the work in your lap or opening the door for you. Even the people I was listening to, gosh, I'm listening to Severance, the podcast right now. I don't know if anybody of you are watching it, but it's kind of mind-boggling to me that Ben Stiller and Adam Scott are reading copy for advertisements in between. Like, they're doing a podcast and they still have to get the money in themselves too, to be able to finance their work. It's like very humbling to think that everybody has to do this now. It's just a different landscape when Ben Stiller is doing commercials on his podcast. Like, it's like wild to me. So I guess, what are some of the things that we should be doing at our or any level? And I love that you're saying think about yourself as a CEO of a $3, $4 million company. That's actually really good advice.
Yeah, so I think the best place to start, right, is compensation versus investment, right? What am I giving? What am I getting, right? And so, like, even there is we're talking about actually being paid for certain jobs, and I think one of the things that is such a challenge to navigate when you're early in your career, no matter what artistic pursuit you're sort of focusing in on, there is a level of kind of, doing your time, right? And doing some things for free. And the common question that we're, consistently sort of talking to students about is like, when do I stop doing the free work? When do I start asking for monetary, actual money back for the services that I'm providing? So compensation versus investment is really important, even with free work, right? And this gets back to the joke of like, oh well, what's the exposure, right? You can't be paid in exposure and those sorts of things, and
Copy is
that's
like your pay is copy, meal, and credit or something.
right.
IMDb credit. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And again, look, if you don't have an IMDb credit, if you've got no content for your reel, if if you're just starting, you do really need that level of exposure and that level of experience, right? So it is, you do have to do a little bit of it, because I do. I've it's funny. I've had a couple of calls with younger students lately, and they're like, "And I'm just done with free work." And they're like 13 or 14. I'm like,
Good
"Oh,
luck
good
with
for
that.
you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly." And like, I love that attitude. And there are certain elements with some of these young artists in which it's true, right? I learned a great lesson. We were producing, helping a student create a short film. This is probably about 3, 4 years ago now. And we brought on a fantastic actress who's one of our friends. We've known her for years. Her name is Kim Jackson. And we started dealing with her. And she was kind of like, because what we like to do is bring people who are a little bit above like our students and bring them into the films. You know what I mean? Like bring in like not an A-lister, but bring in someone who you also want to be at the same level of their career. So we hired her to play the lead actress in this short film. Um, and it was that thing of like, we asked her to audition and she goes, "Oh, let me read the script." We send her the script. She goes, "I've played this many times before.
Mm.
Here's my reel." And she's like, "I won't audition for it." And she sent her a reel and we're like, of course she doesn't need to audition for it. That character at like the 2 minute mark is exactly what we're looking for. So, it's like if you've done that thing before, you've done it well, and you've done it for free. Maybe you do it once, maybe you do it twice. After that, then you could be offer only, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the materials backing you to say, "Hey, I've done this before," right? It is show business, meaning, and
Mm-hmm.
people say this thing all the time as well, right? But it's like you have to show us that thing that you've already done this, like that you can do this. This goes for everything. Again, I come from a carpentry background, right? Like I was back in Australia when I, first got out of high school. I went through my apprenticeship in carpentry. It's the same friggin' thing. Art, sometimes people want to make it so like mysterious. And it's like, if I don't know how to hang a door and someone goes, "Hey, Rob, can you come in and hang a door?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've done it before." Like, if I screw up the first door, right? Like, they're not going to hire me again. Yeah. And so it's similar in those elements. So understanding investment versus compensation. And the biggest thing that I also would love to give to you guys is you have to start to practice being $1 million person, $1 million performance, writing your $1 million script before anyone's going to give you $1 million, right? If you are doing free work, do not take that work unless you are, as my teacher used to say in acting, lit the fuck up by it, that it lights and ignites your soul on fire. Otherwise, you're wasting everyone's time, including your own, right? And it comes across as like, well, I'm just doing this because I was told to do it, right? You have to kind of really dig your heels in and go, this is important to me. Simon Sinek, author and sort of entrepreneur and fantastic speaker, always says people don't care what you do, they care why you do it, right? Like, why is this so important? The first ever film that I made of my own was this dumb, buddy kind of comedy. But for me, Adam Sandler is a huge inspiration of mine. I love that. I love Adam Sandler movies. Yes, there's a couple, that you're like debatable. But for me, making this sort of silly buddy comedy, it was so important to me because that's the type of person and the type of content that I want to put out there. I want people to have a fun time. I want people to be able to quote certain things and certain moments of films like that. That's the connection that I had with my dad. We still almost speak in terms of Adam Sandler quotes from movies, right? Like that's a connection point. If I go back home, that's what I'd love to do is sit down, have a scotch and watch an Adam Sandler movie with my dad. That's bonding time for me. Like that is my connection point. So, those sort of things and kind of gone off on the tangent, but coming back to this compensation versus investment. What am I giving? What am I getting? Even if it is for free. So coming back to that exposure, yeah, let's say there is an opportunity, there's a script on something that looks good, and I'll talk about it as an acting point of view, and if any of you guys have questions about like filmmaking or relating it back to writing, we can go there as well. But if there's an opportunity for me as an actor, I want to read the script, right? I want to make sure a story is always number one. And again, this is like, you guys should all have your own criteria of why would I take on free work, right? For me, and again, this does relate to if you're a writer, how do you get actors to do things for free, right? Write a really good script. Write a real, like, story is always number one. And this is where you're talking about Ben Stiller before, right? If you want to get an A-list actor to do something or a B-list actor to do something, script is always number one, right? So spend time on that story. Yeah. When you're an actor, read stories, read, like read short films, go watch, there's so much access to short films online. Go watch. I feel like we all go off and we're making so many short films. It's like, when was the last time you sat down and watched 10 to 20 short films? Right? Which ones do you love? Like, be that person that's really that thing. I would love to work on something like that. Be decisive about it, right? And then again, from a marketing and sales point of view, which we can talk about in a second, like, list the names of the people that are in the film, right? And again, these people are doing what you want to do at the level that you want to do it at, right? It doesn't have to be, well, which casting director should I bother today and reach out to today, right? I think one of the problems that we come into and we face with business is we're asking for hands up rather than looking to our left and right and trying to help each other up, right? And I think some of the best in business do that, and they find the people to the left and right. They find their collaborators, and they all kind of rise to the top, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
anyways,
good. Let's pause on that. That's a really good just marketing, since this is about marketing, is I often see people making things and their process and their behind the scenes. Austin Kleon says, show your work. So show the things that you're doing. And some of you know Eric Qualls, this guy in our community. He's just making these short films. I think he's doing like one a week, or he was doing one a week for quite some time. And they're doing it for no budget with their friends, but they're making and creating content. And what I see is a work ethic, a collaborating community, people who are putting stuff out. Some of it's great, some of it's not, and they're learning together. And that is a marketing tool to network and to make things with people on your left and your right. So that is a great point and a great tip there.
yeah, and it is, again, and it's that thing of like, what do I want to get out of this, right? And I think a lot of the times, we can get caught in doing things for the sake of doing things, right? So let's kind of, I'll dive into something that I love to sort of teach you guys, because we're talking about like business. It's not show business, right? And we're talking about, agents and managers, and most of the time, all of us want an agent and a manager, right? Like that's the goal, really, for the short time, yeah. That is going to make me procuring work easier because I'm then bringing someone onto my team. Yeah. Now, does anyone know? Does anyone know how much? And you can show by your hands how much an agent or a manager would take in commissions. Yeah, 10%.
So somebody
Yeah,
say no.
yeah, 10%.
In the Bay, if you're not union, they get 20.
Yeah,
Oh.
commercially most of the time, right? Theatrically, generally, it's 10%. Sometimes if they're a manager, or a very hands-on manager, they can take 20% theatrically as well, right? So a lot of the time, people are like, in their basket, they're going, or in their goals list, manager, agent, that's going to solve my problems. They are doing, even when you get them, they should only be doing 10% of the work. That's all they're paid for, right? Like, even on the best days when you're earning money, they're still only taking 10% of that commission, right? So it's such a small amount. That's where we need to know, all right, what area am I actually employing this person to do this job? Yeah. And this is where it is technically they're in the sales department, right? Little bit of the accounts managing. Sometimes, they're managing the money actually coming in, right? So they're a little bit in the accounting part of our business structure, but mostly they're in our sales. Yeah. They then communicate back with us about our marketing material, right? But they're not actually in our marketing team. That is up to us. They don't pay the money for us to go do the things in order for us to then get the marketing. So I'll kind of come and just I like to look at like a five sort of the 5 key points of a business, right? So level 1, we've got research and development. Who do I want to be? How do I want to be? How do I want to do it? Right? What do I want to do? Right? Again, for me, I say Adam Sandler and people probably go, oh God, nope, not for me. Yeah. Like, but like that is a huge goal of mine. That is something like if I work with Adam Sandler in any capacity, I'm like, that's a big win for me. I'm not even joking. Like 3 nights ago, I had a dream that I met him. This is how like, so,
On the vision board, bring
yeah,
it.
Yeah. So research and development. And I'll come back to another concept that can really help you with this specific step because it is very important. Yeah. Number 2, services provided, right? What am I actually giving and what type of services do I want to provide? Again, the jobs that I got paid for in Australia before moving out to Los Angeles, the jobs that we're paying were generally, I was playing douchebag, asshole, misogynist, racist, homophobic. Like I played bad guys. Yeah. Like again, probably because of my heavy eyebrows, right? And you put a little light on me and the darkness comes underneath them. But they're the jobs that I was getting paid for early in my career. So they're the kind of that was the services, that was my typecasting for the start of it. Yeah. And now I can either lean into that or I can either lean away from that, right? It's then the choice becomes up to you. Yeah. But what services are we actually providing? Let's get specific about what they are. Marketing and sales, yeah, is level 3. Yeah, human resources management of your team and or yourself. Yeah, because if you are the solopreneur, right, you are a team of one. So you need to make sure that your mental health and your energy levels are staying to check. Yeah. And then number 5, your accounts. So again, you can see here, technically, if we're putting an agent or a manager into these 5 systems, you're looking at they're in your sales department, right? It is then your job to communicate with your sales department about what marketing materials you may need. Yeah. And that is where we can then start a dialogue and a collaborative relationship. Again, I meet students and actors and artists all the time who are fed up with, you get a manager, you get an agent, and then they're not doing enough. Yeah. And most of the time, my conversation or the dialogue that I have back with them is, what are you providing them with? Why would you be exciting to them? Right? Other than, hey, any more jobs coming up lately? Can I see my submission report? Like, haven't submitted me much. We're not right. The industry is really slow right now, guys, for everyone. Yeah. But again, it comes back to, how can I help you? How can I help my sales team coordinate with my marketing team so that we can get on the same page? You don't want to, again, go, I'm getting new headshots, come back with new headshots, especially as an actor, right? Come back with new headshots. And the agent's like, oh, these aren't good, right? It's a waste of money. I think I had like 4 or 5 headshot sessions or something before finally my agent at the time was like, these are great. And I was like, I am wasting so much money. But I never had that open dialogue. Hey, I'm looking at getting new headshots. Can we jump on a really quick call? Or what's the best client? What client on your list currently has the best headshots? Let me go check them out. Or if, again, 90% of the work needs to be done by me. I was on your website. I love this client. I noticed Tony has such a strong headshot. Who do you know who he shot with? He didn't credit the headshot photographer. What do you think about Tony's headshot? Do you think this is a photographer that I should work with as well? And they go, oh my God, yes, Tony has great headshots. He's been out for 5 auditions in the space of the last 2 weeks.
I wish.
Everyone, right? But like, you'd be surprised. And again, even if your agent gets back to you and like, Tony's got great headshots, we're still not getting him in, but we're really happy, right? It's slow right now. Then it's not this thing of like, I'm missing out, I'm not getting anything, right? So then it helps you work in with your team member. Yeah. Now, the important thing to remember here is there's kind of two forms of business that we do. I've got the note here. It's a little bit down. I'll just type it into the chat. It's either what we call B2B or B2C, meaning business to business or business to consumer or customer. When you're working with an agent or a manager, it's business to business. You don't, because this can be the trap sometimes. They don't work for you, they work with you, right? So there is that balance of like, yes, we're working together because, again, actors in particular, I would say filmmakers as well, do give so much power away to these agents and managers, right? But then also I've seen it on the flip side where they're like, no, you work for me. I'm a right. And it's like, no, this is a business to business. At any time, both businesses could go, hey, this isn't working for us. Like, let's pack it in. But I think far too often we're doing that before we actually need to, before we're going, hey, let's sit down and make sure we're on the same page. What can my marketing, what do we need in my marketing materials that is going to help me take the next step? Again, I say that is the question you should probably be asking yourself before the meeting that you have with an agent or a manager, right? Well, let's go look at my actual agency's books. And again, this can be reverse engineered if you're looking for an agent or manager. Yeah. Go to their websites, go look at their clients. Have they like what's recent things that they've been booking? IMDb Pro is a fantastic resource for a lot of these things. I don't recommend you guys all going off and spending whatever the money is, $180 a year on IMDb Pro or something silly now, right? What I do suggest is like one of the group gets it and you just make like BraveMaker 123 as your login, and you go, hey guys, I'm gonna get it for the next sort of 6 months. If anyone wants access to it, here's the thing, right? Obviously, be respectful, but like then that way you're splitting $180 by like 10 people. That is a good investment, yeah. But I don't necessarily think you need it for the vanity reasons of like, yay, now you can see my headshot. Like you want to use it as an actual research tool. That is what it's actually fantastic for.
Robbie, let me just break in and
Please.
say I hadn't thought about that. I know people share that for Netflix, although they've probably been cracking down on that, I heard. But things like IMDb Pro and other things as a marketing tool, that's a great idea. Canva, right? I use Canva all the time, and now we get Canva free because we're a nonprofit and people on our team can use it, which is great. But thinking about, okay, what am I paying for? Look at my budget. And then I'm also thinking too, we meet every Monday. So all of you who are members on here, and we've been saying since the beginning, we really want to create collaboration. So on this team, on this call, are there people who you could meet every other week on a Zoom and just kind of talk strategy? Like, what are you doing? But also, I'm such a huge proponent of this, but boosting and elevating each other on social media is such a great way to benefit and get free marketing. Like, hey, I'm gonna boost you this week. What can I do? What headshot do you want me to post? I'll put it in my social media. Say, here's my friend. We're on this Monday thing together. She just got. I'm thinking of Gabriele. She just got representation. Whatever. Blah blah blah. Like, say things like that and boost people, because that's what we can do. On the sides that are gonna help raise us up, and just makes you look good too. Like, that's a person I want to hang out with and or cast, someone who's encouraging and affirming in the social media realm, right?
Yeah. And same thing, if you guys book a film, if your friends in a film, if there's we actually did a class of mine this year where I was like, guys, what's your each of you guys are going to list the recent work, whether it be a short film or whatever, anything that you've done, and list your favorite people that you worked with, and then you're going to give your friends those connections. Yeah, because you're introducing good people to good people, right? Otherwise, I'm looking at Tony and being like, man, that guy gets all the work. Like he just worked with this thing, and I'm not getting anything, right? I haven't gotten anything in years, and or the things that I am getting, are not lighting my soul on fire, and they're like, whatever, like I'll do it because I'm supposed to be doing it, right? I'll work for the sake of working because hopefully that goes to something. Yeah. Versus like Tony says, oh, I just worked with this producer. They were freaking amazing. And then he's like, you guys should link up. And then you give me the email, and I could be like, I would do my research beforehand. And I would be like, hey, I just watched, I'm a friend of Tony's. I just saw the film that you guys put together. Awesome work. Like, man, that was incredible. He said, you were amazing. Right. Compliments and respect is what people want. Yeah. If we really come back to it, and I ask the question, and for sake of time, we won't go around the room on this, but like generally, when it comes back to why do I pursue this art form? Number one, it's what I actually enjoy doing, right? And I want to do the thing that I love to do, right? And hopefully get paid to do it and be able to support myself. Yeah. And then after you kind of get to those things, it's respect, right? I want to be doing work that people respect. Right? Not necessarily like I can't go down to the local coffee shop and grab a coffee without being bombarded by people, right? But again, if I walk down the street and someone says, "Hey, like I saw that thing that you did, you were incredible, really nice work, man," I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much! Like you made my day," right? That pumps me, like that level of respect. So can I give compliments out? Can I actually, and again, do your research. Don't just give them away for like the argument's sake, but like, go watch, if Tony's worked with a producer, go watch 3 of their other films if they've made other things, right? Like, that those sort of things can be really beneficial to kind of, network off your network, and also help each other sort of, what's the phrase? Rising tide raises all ships or something.
Yeah.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's so important in this industry. Yeah.
And going back to your comment on mental health, and we can start taking questions here too, but thinking about our mental health, there is a lot of impact, right? When we're thinking about the competition and watching other people get things and we don't. And so just guarding your heart and protecting yourself when you are processing the social media scroll, because we know like that glacier image, there's just so much underneath that you don't see. There's so many things that people are going through that you'll never know. And it is hard for everybody right now. It really, really is. So that person who booked something or got cast, like awesome. Like they had to, work so hard, an army crawl, get to that finish line, and they're like barely believing it themselves. So making sure we shower people with affirmation, because it will come back. I'm seeing that now as I'm going through some things, and I'm watching how people are reaching out to me and like, oh, it just feels so great. And I'm making mental notes. Like that's what I want to be doing too for people, right? I want to be that person of support, that person of encouragement. And I want to be filling the social media with likes and comments when people are doing well, because it's so easy to like hold that thumb over and not. But that's a marketing tool too. And not to be strategic, I just posted this meme like kindness can be a strategy, but it's also a way of life too.
Yeah.
And again, it really is evident when people are great to work with. And we all know people who haven't been great to work with. So that's marketing as well. That's negative marketing. So
Yeah.
be so aware of that.
Yeah. And it's that thing of, again, I like exactly as you said, if someone succeeds, it means you can, right? And I know that sounds like, maybe slightly narcissistic. But like if someone books a job, go research the job. Like go check out what they're actually doing. Go check out what they're actually working on. Like it can then be like, oh my God, Tony's working with Ben Stiller. Like that is all, or whatever it is. But even on the lower tier, right? I think it's so important on those lower wins. They're far more accessible for you to then also be able to like benefit from someone else's success. Like, it's these people are making, you've got someone making a film a week. That's a great person to know. That's a great person to reach out to and be, hey, we were just talking about you in recent BraveMaker. Like, I think that's such an awesome thing, right? Go give those things. That's also like, again, this can come with rejection. Artists talk about rejection all the time. Rejection can be sending an Instagram DM and not getting a response.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, guys, right? People are busy. Yeah, it's okay. Again, I just was very fortunate. I've listened to this podcast for years, right? And I went in for a commercial audition the other week, and it was the guy that runs the director that runs the podcast. It totally threw me. I was like, Oren, like Oren Kaplan from Just Shoot It podcast, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I'm like, and I kind of like wigged out for a second because I just didn't expect him to be there, right? But I DM'd him, I'd even emailed him 4 years prior to, and I was like, I actually sent you guys an email. I really appreciate what you guys do. And he's like, oh, let me, and he pulled it up then, and he's like, oh wow, that's so cool. And so immediately, like that was like a thing that technically I didn't get a response from, but then connected us closer together because it's not then, oh, I'm a big fan of the show. It's like, no, I've actually even like started that connection and communication with you guys, that then kind of shows that it's not just like a surface level compliment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. All right. Well, let's see. L has a question. Go for it, L. I see your DM. And anybody else who wants to ask a question, you can raise your hand or put it in the comments and we will bring you up. I'm going to put you in the pin and you can ask it personally. Hi, L.
Hi, good morning, and hi to all the lovely faces, most of you who I know really, really well. Um, Robbie, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, I've written like so many things down and I'm feeling so lit up and creative. I want to go back to the piece where you were number two for services provided.
Yeah.
What services are you providing? I think this is a question for you as well as the group because I could use a little bit more input. I feel like I kind of understand that on a character level, but I'd like to have more concrete examples. So, like, if the group knows, or if you have something a little bit more tangible, because that's hard for me to sort of, yeah, like I feel like if someone came over to my house and was like, "Oh, what can you make for me?" I can be like,
Yeah.
"I make a mean lasagna. I make a amazing this, that, the other." Like, what does that look like in an actor world?
Such a beautiful question, and I'm so glad you're like, hey, let's get specific because I hate when people are like vague. And again, please, like those questions are always helpful and things that you should always ask for clarity on in those things because there's nothing worse than walking away from a session feeling inspired and then going, but what do I do with this inspiration? Right? Shit. Right. So I love the tangible thing. So when it comes to branding, we really like to break branding down into three different categories, right? People often talk about what you look like is the obvious one, right? But we always go with look, feel slash I say energy and aspiration can really help you get like a little bit of a true north into what type of content and what type of what is your quote unquote brand, right? So look, feel slash energy and aspiration, right? Aspiration, who's doing what I want to do at the highest level and doing it exceptionally well, right? What is the type of actor and artist that are doing the roles that I would die to do? Yeah. And that could be literally like one film that's ultra specific. Like it could be a dozen films, it could be a filmmaker, it could be an actor as a whole, right? Ben Still is a great example of like a career that I would fucking die to have. Like that is such a he's done so many good things. He's acting, he's directing, right? He's done independent, like awesome indie movies, and then like the big blockbuster stuff. He's wacky. He's stupid. Zoolander is insane, but awesome at the same time, right? So like that's the, same as like Jim Carrey, the balance. Robin Williams, like the balance between these guys and their sort of careers. Will Smith, I know a little controversial still, but my God, that man and his career is just like with the, starting in comedy, Ryan Reynolds, right? I'm listing aspirations from me, right? These people, sometimes people would be like, oh God, no, not for me, right? Energy is another really important one, right? What you look like might get you into the room, but your energy will book you the job, right? They just felt a little off, right? Just didn't feel right for, let's say, Janine, right? We're playing, right? And just like that's not. And so once you start to understand energy, you're like, oh, okay. I might look this way, but my energy gives this sort of closer to this. So again, once I started to realize that my energy is sort of like more Ben Stiller, Chris Pratt, I get a lot energy wise, right? Because I'm an overgrown child. And I actually have a list. I haven't looked at it in a while of like my energies. I've got about 10 actors listed in my energies. Yeah. And same thing once. Hugh Grant was literally when I first booked my first ever agent. I was lucky enough to have this little showcase, and I had bombed at showcases before. Like, I'm not even joking. One time I auditioned for a manager, and they're like, hold your sides. And my hand was shaking. You could just hear the rattling of the paper, and my tongue felt like it was stung by a bee. And like, I couldn't speak. And I just like, I literally left the room and basically just sat there like, I should quit. I'm going to quit today. So I had bad ones. And then this one, and it's because I was trying to play these confident characters, and probably you can tell by my cadence and rhythm that I'm pretty pretty quick, right? And once I started to understand that, as soon as I started to play these like nervous kind of romantic comedy Hugh Grant-esque type energies, I was like, oh, this is so easy. I don't need to act. I just need to be really friggin' nervous and lean into that energy, right? And like they're like, oh my God, you're so funny, like that bumbling idiot thing. I'm like, thank you. Right? So like I understood the energy, and rather than being like, hey, how you going? You want to go for a drink? And I'm like, I'm so nervous. Like I can't play that energy as well as I can play like bumbling idiot. Ty Burrell is who I'm basically am now from Modern Family. Any audition I go for now since having a son is like young weird dad. Like the first commercial I booked out here, I was the dad that concreted himself into the swimming pool when trying to DIY his own swimming pool, right? And I'm like afraid that my wife is going to find out, so I stay out there, right? So that's all energy, not look, right? I'm sure slightly look got me in there, but the energy was the most important thing. Yeah. So the next final thing, or the next thing that we come back to, especially in regards to like branding and what we're going to do, is I've just posted a little image in here that I go back to all the time, right? Which ikigai is a Japanese concept meaning reason for being, right? Your purpose, right? So it's this intersection of what we love, what the world needs, what can you be paid for, and what you can be good at. And I love the sort of overlapping of each one of these, right? Whether it's a mission-based career, whether it's passion-based career, whether it's professional-based career, or whether it's a vocational-based career, right? So what type of career do I want to have, right? Do I really want to make sure? Because again, at the end of the day, sometimes if you can be cast in a certain role, a lot of people get tired of playing that role, right? And then they're like, all right, I've done this. I'm no longer willing to sort of, Matthew McConaughey's got a great example of this. He's like, I was done with romantic comedies. Yeah. You couldn't pay me to do them anymore. And then they kind of kept raising their price on one more. And he's like, all right, I'll do one more. Right. Because he's like, great. But he just like essentially almost doubled his salary on the next rom-com that he did, because he's like, I'm not doing these anymore. And then they're like, what about for this? And he's like, all right, well, let's do one more. Right. Why not? Yeah. So this sort of concept, what do I love doing? And you guys can write a list down of these things, whether it be films, whether it be television, whether it be short films, right? And see, like, all marketing is, or sort of research and development is pattern recognition, right? What do I actually love doing? What do I want to do? What do I think there's a gap in the current marketplace, right? What does the world need more of? You know, Jess, my wife, is obsessed with the 80s, and everything she makes has this like hint of 80s in it, right? And again, because she misses the way that movies used to be made. Like, so that's kind of, she goes back to that. That's kind of her feeling that section in. Yeah. And then, yeah, what are you good at? Right. Again, I'm not great at like playing the big confident man. I'm very good at the bumbling idiot. So, these things are good questions to ask yourself. When was the last time I did something in, if it be acting, if it be writing, if it be filmmaking, that kind of felt a little bit less effort, like I didn't have to try as hard, or I got really good feedback from a coach or a thing, or again, as Tony was saying, from a friend, where they're like, I really like this on you, like this feels right. Like again, I always say when it's peer to peer, try and ask 2 to 3 peers rather than a singular one, because you want to still be able to sort of make up your own mind on those things rather than being dictated by a single opinion, because it is a opinion based. Yeah. Oh, Tony, you're on mute.
Oop.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me? Check one,
Yeah,
check two.
gotcha.
This is a little dicey, but just making a comment, for you, L2 and others about what you offer and your services. Obviously, your talent is one thing. I love what you said about your energy or your aura, Robbie. Like there's just that is a positive thing to talk about when you're talking with directors or casting, when you're a screenwriter and you're talking to managers and agents. I pride myself when I'm pitching myself as someone who brings warmth and inclusivity. Those are things I'm positively affirming, like that's part of my service is.
Mm.
You might have heard, the controversial statement that Maya Hawke recently said, that a producer told her that they're looking at the number of followers at social media. This is not a new thing. It really isn't. And,
No.
love it or hate it, it really is a part of our culture, our casting culture. Some people aren't on social media at all, and I just love and adore and I'm envious of them that can do it. And that said, there is a lot of that social media presence, and Belgica does a great job with this, and we've worked together on this. Like, she brings a service along with her talent and her personality and her aura, but she's like, I have a YouTube channel. I'm making behind the scenes videos. That's very appealing for this time and age, right? Like this fact that someone is self-creating, self-generating, it's very important part of the services. So if that gives you anxiety, then throw it away because you
Yeah.
don't need to take that on. But those of you who are really good at it, engage with that and lead with that and pair it, right? You've heard this before, talent is so important, but hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle, right?
Mm.
So that's something I saw in a gym, a fitness gym one time in their window. I was like, oh my gosh, that has to do with, performance and
Yeah,
filmmaking and stuff
I've
too.
heard the same thing. For it was hard work will always beat talent because talent doesn't always work hard, right? Is
Ooh, good
is the
one. Yeah,
way
good.
that I've
Yes.
seen it. But it is exactly that. And social media, like again, just take a step back from it. It's like, well, yeah, if I can get my film seen by potentially another 100,000 people, what an opportunity. Like it's an absolute no-brainer for certain things. Now, it's a big turn on and it's a big turn off for some
Mm-hmm.
people. I've been in
Mm-hmm.
rooms where people are like,
Yep.
oh, if that's the social media, like, no, that's not right.
Yep.
So it wants to be, and this is, we were talking about protecting your own mental state, right? The term of burnout, right, is one that it doesn't kill me, but it frustrates me a little bit, right? Because I feel like we're like, oh, I'm burnt out. It's like generally you're burnt out because you're doing the things that don't energize you. Not that you're doing too much, you're just doing things that are de energizing to you, right? So it's like, okay, burnout doesn't mean, oh, I'm burnt out. I need to do nothing. I need to quit. I need to take a break, which, I've heard so many artists say, I just need a break for a bit to focus on me, right? It's like, then the art should fill you. Like if the art isn't filling you up, it may not be the industry for you. Go do the type of art that does light you up, right? Go do something that like is focused in on like what you want to be doing and what you love doing. Like go reconnect with your art rather than necessarily like putting it on the back burner and separating yourself from it, right? That's yeah. Anyways, yeah.
And you can market your rest as well. It's a good thing to market. Some people are really good at that. Hi, Gwen. What's your question?
Hey, thanks, Robbie. I love your energy. Love the goofy energy. It works for me. Um, I have a question, which I realize is sort of a yes or no question, and so that I'm like, okay, I have to make it more open-ended than that. Um, but I'll start with the yes or no, which is, you're told as a writer, you're told a lot, pick your lane, pick your brand, do this one thing that you're good at so that you're easily marketable. And
Mhm.
I don't seem to be capable of doing that. So I'm curious about if Quirky is a brand, if unbrandable is a brand? And if so, how do you market quirky? How do you market, not untamable per se, but doesn't stay boundaried.
Yeah, it's such a great question. It's great. Is I love is unbrandable a brand? I love the way that that is phrased. I don't think so, right? I think, the problem that we have when we do so many things, and I'm so guilty of this, right, is it's just going to take longer, right? If you don't necessarily choose your lane from the onset, you're going it's actually going to just delay probably your steps to success. Once you get there, everyone's going to be like, where the hell have you been, Gwen? Like, you're like a Swiss Army knife. Like, you've done this and you could do this again. My wife is like a Swiss Army knife. She can do, like, she does so many things really well, right? So generally I would say it's just going, because technically you then need marketing materials for each one of those categories, right? So if you want to, it's that thing of like, it always comes back to, okay, if you do that, prove it, right? If you can do this, prove it, right? Show me the script, right? And so that's where it's like, make sure, because again, you can be like, oh, I can do this and I write this little bit way. Again, aspirations are a really good category for you to look at, because these quirky writers and people that have sort of done bits and pieces of everything do exist, right? So it's like, oh, okay. And then you can use those people as examples. Like, I'm trying to think of one. Does any pop into your mind, Gwen?
Actually, you know what just occurred to me was someone who I admire greatly and aspire to be is Greta Gerwig. And she went from Mumblecore to Ladybird to Little Women to freaking Barbie.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great example, right? Tim Burton's very much like that. I mean, he's got sort of his dark-esque style to it. Wes Anderson, very similar journey. You go back and you watch like his progression from like Bottle Rockets originally up until Grand Budapest Hotel, right? Like, that's incrementally doing the step ups. Again, even I would say quirky is his brand, right? Like, offbeat is his brand, right? So yeah, like finding those things and saying, okay, how am I alike and how am I different is kind of the next follow-up question, right? I'm very similar in these categories, but then I'm slightly a little bit, again, just for like a little bit Tim Burton-esque in this, or I want to, Greta Gerwig, Ladybird, a little bit of this sort of side section. But yeah, those things are definitely, it helps because we want to make sure that we can communicate that to people, right? That is a part of our marketing, is like, and again, as I said, the marketing material, here's who I am, here's proof of this, right? Here's the proof, right? The proof is in the pudding, is what they say. Yeah.
We had a session with Tristan Schuler. I don't know if you were able to see that one, Gwen, but it is in the archive. And he had this great line about, you can describe yourself as like who your parents are in the industry. Like, I have two moms, or I have a throuple as parents, or my dad's Wes Anderson, my mom's Quinta Brunson, or something like that. And that's a way to explain, like, I kind of exist in these camps, in my comedy or in my perspective or in my jokes or my drama. And I thought, oh, that's really kind of cool. So maybe that'll be helpful for you too, Gwen, as you describe your
baking recipes are a great one to come back to. Like, a little analogy about like if you were to cook banana bread, right? But with like a walnut, right? And you could go into that. I've heard people do it with like cocktail mixes, and they use like actors' names to, like, if you were making a cocktail with Matthew Perry,
that's great,
Chris Pratt, and this person, you shook them up. That's kind of where you'd
love
find
that.
Me. Yeah.
And the writers and creators out there, get creative with how you describe yourself and how you talk about your brand and your acting or your screenwriting or your filmmaking, your presence, in general. Like, that's a really great. I like that. Anyone else have a question? I see Elle has another question. We're going to bring her up because, come on. Hi.
They sure do have another question. It's actually not a question. That's a lie.
My bad.
Um,
Yes.
I was just going to say that I, Gwen, thank you for that comment because I was kind of pondering on that myself, and I'm wondering, Tony, if we might want to add to the soup of like have it might be great to have a meeting or have those weekly or monthly meetups where we help each other with branding because I feel like it
Yeah.
may not work as much for a writer, but I feel like with actors that idea of like what do you bring or what is your energy, sometimes it's hard to maybe self-analyze, but I'm wondering if maybe at some of the meetings we could say like, okay, today we're going to do Belgica and like
Yeah.
generate a whole list of like what we see and all of those things, just because I think that works better probably in group,
That's great.
especially
I think
people
you're
who
right. And we can definitely do that. We're going to have a hot seat next Monday in this session, but we have a mixer coming up on Thursday, March 6th. And that's something we could play around with. And I think writers and any filmmakers too, like, that people know your work who have read your work, or you as an actor, Al, you auditioned for people, or you've acted in you've been cast in people's things. You could describe, like, how would you describe me as a director, right? How would you describe me as a writer? How would you describe Gwyn, those of you who've been involved in Gwyn's Ransom? What is the aura, the recipe, the parental style, of her storytelling? I think that's a great idea. I'm definitely, if you're coming on March 6th, we can definitely implement that. That's a great idea. Thank you.
I think with actors, it's really easy to be like, oh, this
Yeah.
actor reminds me of you, right? For
Right.
writers and filmmakers, this is where we get the word like comparisons or comparables, right? Comps are everything. Like, don't ever take it as an insult. I think sometimes we do, right? When we write something and we put something out there and they're like, oh, this is kind of like this thing. When someone gives you this thing, that is gold. That's so helpful to go, oh, it is kind of like that, right? It's like, how is it the same and how is it different? Well, it is that, right? But I'm trying to think of, oh my God, I can't think of one of my favorite directors' names. I can see his face. British guy, did Baby Driver, did oh my God, what is his name?
Oh yeah, young guy. I can't think of his name either. What is his name? Keep going though. We'll IMDb it.
But that was so one of the films that I did was like it was kind of my God, it's gonna bother me. Adam Sandler.
Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, thank you so much. It's Adam Sandler with Edgar Wright, editing and cutting and visualization, right? So there was a lot of like match cuts. There was a lot of like quick cuts and overlay that kind of had, in one of the sequences, my character's, it's a weird, quirky comedy in which like my character, rather than breaking up with his girlfriend, decides to try and find the perfect guy for her. So he's kind of like he's technically speed dating on behalf of his girlfriend to try and help her find the perfect guy so he doesn't have to break up with her, right? And it's like this sequence of like him making coffee and like on Craigslist and like, but it's like quick cuts, really quick cuts, overlapping, editing to the music that I wanted to bring into that, like certain sequences that was very Edgar Wright, but also like stupid, fun Adam Sandler-esque sort of storyline.
We need to see some of this work you're making. You're getting us excited. Thank you, Jacob, for your last question and his first time with us. Thanks for being here.
Hey everyone, super happy to be here, and thank you, Robbie, for being here also. I love what you've said so far. I think that bringing the energy is such a huge aspect to everything, and I think you nailed your energy super well, how you described it. I think a question that we might all have that I think I'd love to actually have the answer for is, how do you accrue funding for these kinds of things? I know that you do classes, and I know that you work with students. As we're creating our own stuff, it can, like you were saying earlier, be difficult to get people on the project or people who have a lot of experience with it as well. How do you raise funds? How can we make some money to be able to actually pay the people that we're working with?
100%, right? So, great question. I come back to, I got so many little acronyms and stuff like this. I come back to an acronym that I sort of created, which is knowledge, KRC, not KFC. KRC is the way I remember it. Knowledge, resources, in order to create, right? So we need to build knowledge about our resources, because monetary things aren't always, as we were saying before, is like the compensation, right? So whilst the big thing that my wife and I do is we budget it out no matter what. So most of the time, the films that we create with our students, the actual budget itself is around, anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000, right? Then we start to look at, okay, well, can we get this person to reinvest some of that money? Can we get this person to reinvest some of that money? Can we get this resource? Can we get a location? Can we steal a location for free? Right. And so who do I know? Who do I know who knows what? Who do I know who has what? Right. What do they know? What do they have access to? And a lot of the time, that's where I encourage people to create from the first time, right? I don't believe in like stacking credit card bills or anything like that and just go all in, which can sometimes be the advice. I think a lot of the time it comes from like colleges after they've done like 4 years, and you're like, I've just done 4 years. And they're like, now you got to make your thesis film, put it on a credit card. You got to do it. And then they come out with, student debt and credit card debt, which is just terrifying. So, again, going back to that thing of a list is always very helpful, right? So I've said list so many times, right? And this is something I did. There's a company out here called Independent Film. And I did a class with them for independent film finances and business management or something like that, right? And it's the same thing. The right way you raise $10,000 is the exact same way as you raise $6 million, right? So the first list is people that you think could invest potentially, again, depending on your budget, $100 or more, right? Maybe $1,000 or more, right? And you have a list of people who may be in a financial position that you have access to that might think, again, filmmaking is sexy, guys. Like, it's a sexy kind of thing. You've got people that have gone in to do different jobs that they're not necessarily loving, that are probably far more stable than you in regards to this. So you offer them this little gateway or this bridge to an interesting, intriguing kind of thing that we're doing, right? So again, what's their incentives? What can you offer them? Whether it's an on-set pass, right? Whether it's like a signed movie poster and a big thank you, whether it's this, right? Whether it's a t-shirt. Again, I don't go too much with material things because then it adds additional money for you to then send back to them. But like, what is the incentive that they would invest? A lot of the time it's because they care about you, because they've known you for a long time, right? Community is the biggest thing. If you've ever played a sport, that's a place to go. If your mum or dad works somewhere, that's a place to go. If you've worked somewhere, that's a place to go, right? Any previous, so for example, on my first short film, I got a whole location for free completely because it was an old nightclub that I went to. And I was like, hey, what's your least busy day? When can we be the less invasive? What's we don't have a lot of budget. And again, this is an advantage of being in Australia. In Los Angeles, you cannot get free locations anywhere unless you're literally like stealing one on the street, which again, permits and all that sort of stuff becomes risky, but right. And so like the way that you raise funds is pitch with passion, pitch with purpose, right? Never, and I always say this, like, even if it is mom and dad that are like, oh, I'll give you $100 towards this. Don't expect anything from anyone and pitch everyone with the same amount of passion and the same amount of purpose. Why am I creating this thing, and why does the world need to create it? And that's where I always come back to. Only like you should only do this maybe once every 2 years for yourselves, right? This can't be a constant thing. If you're making something every week and asking money to people to invest in it, they're not really going to, be able to probably financially support you in a weekly endeavor. But if it's like one every 2 years, one every 5 years, and this is the most important thing to you and something that you're really passionate about, then people get behind that passion. People are excited because you're excited, right? And again, do the work. The cheapest time for you guys to film make is in pre-production and planning. So spend time on that. Again, any form, it's the whole industry. I'll wrap this up real quick. the whole industry is a paradox, right? It's the chicken or the egg, right? So we have to tell the chicken that the egg's coming and the egg that it's hatching into a chicken. We just have to find that first little bit of momentum. Yeah. And it could be a people, place, object, or an event, right? It could be this like, well, I have this location that I could go to. One of the student of mine one year, we were talking about, we were going through her branding, and she's like, Anne of Green Gables came up and like period pieces. So I was like, ooh, expensive. And then I was like, hang on, shut up, Rob. Like, don't worry about what I say. Let's keep going down. Like, why and blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, what could we do? I was like, well, if it's a landscape type thing, if it's external, we then don't need necessarily like crazy production design. That's not going to cost us. And I was like, who do you know that could potentially help you with costume or makeup and blah, blah, blah. And we went down the list, and she's like, oh, actually, my aunt or someone of her aunt has like this is like a antique costume place or something like this. And I was like, are you kidding me? And she's like, yeah, she could probably help. I was like, yeah, she could. Like, that's a huge resource that you were sitting on that you didn't even realize, right? And so that's where it's like, okay, who do I know who has what? Who do I know who knows what? And that's the thing of like, again, putting a value on that into your other investors. Well, I've already saved over $1,000 in costumes because we've got a donor who's coming on board. I am going to, right? Momentum and direction is so important. This is going to happen with or without you, not please help me, I'm poor, right? We're doing this. The car's going. We're on this road trip. It's going to be awesome. Are you in? Right? I don't need a lot. I just need a little. Give us, come along with us rather than like, please help me. I'm poor. I'm desperate.
A
Yeah.
date on the calendar helps so much. Like with our film
So
festival,
much.
sometimes, like we have a film festival. It's coming. You can give. We have this film. It's going to be in production. This is the first date. That really helps. And sometimes you got to do that at the risk of even that doesn't always bring everything you need, but then you go, come hell or high water, I will make it happen with whatever we get, with whatever money, with whatever people, with whatever food, we make it happen. But it does, I think, incentivize people to give when they see the momentum that you're committed to making something happen.
There's a technique called double donation day, right? Which is one classic one that you see all the time. And I was like, I never understood it. I don't think people do it that well. But then someone finally explained it to me. I was like, oh. So if someone says, I'm going to give you, you get one donor that says, I'm willing to give you $200, $300 or something like that.
Yeah.
You say, we have a donor that is going to donate is going to donate on this day and match dollar for dollar anyone else. So today is the day. If you're going to help me out with this film, this is your day to donate, right? And then people go, oh, that's cool. So my money that I do, if I send you $2, it's equal to $4. I'm more likely to give you, a couple of bucks because on that day, I know that's the day that it's going to be the most valuable for you, right? And that's where you can kind of get someone who's on board rather than just putting it straight in the kitty. You can kind of say, look, we've got a very generous investor. Let's get them, right? Like, help me get them. Like, they do it in your own way. But that's another good sort of tactic to be like, do it now. And as Tony said, time. You've got to add a sense of urgency to it. And sometimes you've got to be a bit bullish on it. Like if someone's like, yeah, Jacob, for sure, man, I'm going to donate. You're like, when? Don't want to be a dick, but when? Like, when? Because like, any donations that's helping. And again, I always say the hardest dollar is the first 100, right? Like, or dollars is the first 100. And communicating that to friends, like, generally it works as a waterfall effect. We just need some movement. If you can help me get these first dollars in, it's going to be massively beneficial to this campaign. Yeah. So that's where you can start that, right? And again, getting on like, guys, we've raised $150. This is absolutely incredible. I'm so thankful for everyone. Like, this is going to be possible. We got this. Keep people up to date is a big thing. My teacher, Stu Pollard is his name, would always say it's about the experience of the investors. And that's what they'll come back for. They're like, well, Jacob kept me up to date. Like he sent me a personalized email and he was like, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. and you're like, oh man, this is like, wow, I didn't, again, people look at that and they go, oh, yeah, good luck, right? That's not going to happen, right? $10,000. Yeah. And you're like, guys, we've just slashed our budget in half. This has been donated. My cinematographer said that they're going to halve their rate, bring their own gear, and that like we're going to operate with one AC. Like it's not going to justify, it's not going to damage the quality of the film. Like they don't know what you're talking about half the time, but you're like, holy shit, Jacob's making it happen. They don't need a second AC. I don't even know what a second AC is, but sure, my God, how cool is this, right? You're moving versus like, hey guys, I want to go somewhere. They're like, all right, go. Yeah.
And thank you, Jacob, for the question. And the thing too, I think is so important is specificity. Be specific. What are you spending it on? When do you need it by? The we're raising money for this movie. It's so ambiguous and won't move the needle, but consistency and specificity and urgency, all that stuff. And it's still hard, even with all those things. Even when you check all those friggin' boxes, it's still hard, but you will see movement. All right. Well, we are at time, but Robbie, how do you want people to follow up with you if they want to connect with you? What's the best way?
Best way is definitely through the school, which is at AFTA LA. I mean, my personal handle's in there. I feel like my Instagram is set to the school most of the time.
Okay, cool.
My personal one's just me and my kid every now and then.
Awesome.
So yeah, the school is definitely a great place to reach us. If you guys do have any other questions or any specific questions, feel free to shoot them through. Yeah, we can go from
Thank you so much, dude. We're gonna link up. I'll be, down in LA at the end of March. So thank you for your time. And maybe, I'd love to help out, drop into any of your classes. And if you got your short films you want to submit to the BraveMaker Film Fest, we should definitely talk about that and getting you and Jess to come up here for the 4 days in July. I think there's some cool crossover with your energy and aura and vision and mission and what we're trying to accomplish here. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
And Tony, thank you, man, for creating this space. It's not easy doing this and helping. And guys, thank you so much. Like your attention, sometimes these Zooms are very difficult, but it feels like, it feels like I'm talking to each one of you individually. I really appreciate your time, energy, and your effort on this call. So thank you, guys.
Well, let's do our give Robbie his flowers, his snaps, his hearts, and we'll do a final photo. So give your best look, your best branded, how you want to be known. Do it.
Blue
1,
steel.
2, 3. Nice.
Oh,
all right. Thank you, everybody. Next week, we're doing hot seats. So if you want to share scripts, if you want to talk about your brand, if you want to look at your headshots and say, what are 3 things you would describe? And then don't forget, March 6th is our mixer, and you all get it for free for members. And then we've got Alexandra Boylan, a feature filmmaker with 6 features that's going to be on the March 10th. So she'll be here and we'll send some information about that. But thank you, Robbie. Appreciate you all. Thank you for being here, everybody. Talk soon. Happy week. Enjoy your last week of February. Bye.